full of God, with godlings moving around and loving each other. What a beautiful world it will be. And that's the idea God had. And so we love the dominion, but I know dominion is something we love, but without the image, it becomes destructive. Never seek dominion when you don't yet have the image. A friend of mine says a spoon in the hand of an enemy is more dangerous than a nuclear weapon in the hands of a friend. Let me say that again. A spoon in the hand of an enemy is more dangerous than a nuclear weapon in the hands of a friend. Why? Because a spoon in the hand of an enemy can kill you. Are you listening to me today? But a nuclear weapon in the hands of a friend is okay. It's not going to harm you. It's under control. That's why we say meekness is not weakness, but it's power under control. You're not listening to me today. When you become, even with that much power, you are not destructive. You are not disruptive. So dominion becomes part of what God enjoys. You see, God is so powerful. He wasn't intimidating by creating other powerful beings like He is powerful. You're not listening to me today. That was even Lucifer. If you start to think God created Lucifer, who has as much, of course he will not get to the creator level, but he has power. But he was willing to give him all that power. Because what he needed was the meekness of Lucifer to have that power under control. But Lucifer chose the pride, and his power went out of control. But let me tell you about the image of God. You see, in order for God to preach to us about how much He loved us, it's something that we would never comprehend until He gave us the procreation gift. He said, you also create in your own image, and see what I'm talking about. And so when you create in your own image, when I held my daughter for the first time, I saw myself. I saw my eyes. You guys have no idea. If you haven't had a child, you have no idea. I saw my nose. I saw my eyebrows. If you're not a man, you may not appreciate this as much as we do. Because, sometimes there are children born with other images than our own. I'm sorry, ladies, I had to let this one out. In fact, a statistic in Zimbabwe that I read revealed that 70% of all those who went for paternity tests discovered that the children were not the fathers. So you never know. But the joy of a father when he sees his image in his child. My wife likes to tease me about it and say, look at your son, especially the last one. This guy even walks like you. And I'm like, really? Oh yeah. Now that's me right there. Are you listening to me? And so that is the joy that God feels when His children bear His image. And the sadness that He feels when His children bear the image of the Father. You're not listening to me today. The question is, and I want you to turn to your neighbor and ask, whose image are you? In whose image? Because every parent has a desire that their child does better than they do. You don't know the joy of a parent when they see their child. One of the things I enjoyed, even when I started teaching my children how to drive, my son, especially at 12, By the time he got to 14, he could completely drive me. He didn't have a license, but he then got it at 16, and the joy that I felt sitting on the passenger seat while my son is driving me around. One of the joys that even God himself feels and felt and continues to feel when he sits. You know, I said on the first day that the main actor of the Bible is the Son and not God the Father. The Father is silent. He seems powerless. Ultimate meekness. But the Father sat down while the Son created the world. You're not listening to me today. The Son created the world, and the Father sat and enjoyed. And the Father at the end is going to say, Son, go get your children. Another generation coming down his line. You're not listening to me today. I asked a friend of mine before he passed away, Pastor Masosere, good friend. I said to him, tell me about the experience of being a grandfather, because I know the experience of being a father. But how about being a grandfather? Because I know being a father, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my child except that which harms them. He says the one with the grandchild is even deeper. And he's not the only one who said that to me. That's when I realized God's plan for saving this world is in procreation and family. Let me explain this in an interesting way. You see, if you want to understand why God gave his son for you, you need to understand when danger comes to your son, what you would do. If any parent who is normal sees danger coming to their children, someone coming to kill my child, I will say over my dead body. I would rather die than witness the death of my child. You're not listening to me. I will also give my life. I will spend and I will be spent for my children. And so God is doing exactly that because you are in him. He is in you, inseparable. Unless you cut it off and adopt the image of another father by choice. In fact, what God did was deeper than we can ever do. Because God actually gave his son. It was easier to give himself as the father than to give his son. It's a deeper gift when you have given your son. You haven't heard me. When God looked aside and his son was on the cross and he says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He looked away from his son. He couldn't stand the death. His son was carrying the sin of the world. No parent should ever be exposed to the death of their child. And so when God gave us Jesus, he gave us a gift that is beyond himself. You're not listening to me today. When you look at the Bible and you listen to the account and you read even the account of Jacob, when he thought Joseph had died, he died along with them. No parent should ever experience the death of a child because you go into the grave with your child. You're not listening to me today. And this is why one of the biggest tragedies in the world is when God is going to have to bury his children, when he burns Lucifer and the rest of the people who would have adopted his character. It's going to be a big funeral because God does not delight in the perishing of the evil. Even a bad child is your child. You're not listening to me today. A preacher friend of mine said, if the devil would not let go of my child, why should I? There are people with rebellious children. Do not let them go, because God's love will not let you go. God's love will reach the furthest extents that sin will take you. That is why sins like murder could not leave David out of the kingdom, because God's grace found David even after murder. You're not listening to me today. And this is why when we go to the book of Matthew, come with me to the book of Matthew very quickly. Matthew 22, verse 37 to 39. I want the choristers to come up front. I want to explain something about God's kingdom and how God has created salvation. out of families. And I know in Kenya you have a strong sense of family, and hopefully you will understand this. The choristers, two of you, just the two, come. Leave your books, leave your microphones. I have the only one that is allowed to be used at this time. Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. Sorry, if you allow me to put you in place. 37 to 39. The Bible says,
Jesus said to him,
come now.
You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment.
Love the Lord your God with all your what? Read it again. With all your?
With all your heart.
With all your?
With all your soul.
With all your?
And your mind.
That's everything you've got. Are you listening to me today? And so the vertical relationship, you see, God is giving you a commandment that he hasn't already been. He's trying to make you like him. He's saying, love your God with all your heart. The vertical relationship. All your soul and all your mind. Why? Because I love you with all my mind, with all my soul, with all my heart. So be like me. Are you listening to me today? So God is saying, I want to see me in you. Show me me. You're not listening to me today. And then the Bible says what? And the second, which is like unto the first. Come now.
And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Vertical relationship. Horizontal relationship. I don't use PowerPoint. I use human point. Man to man. God to man. So God, in other words, is saying, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And then he says, love a fellow human, your neighbor, as yourself. Because I love you as I love myself. If I loved myself more, I wouldn't have died for you. I'm too special for that. We would then say. Are you listening to me today? But God equated his life's value to ours. And this is why he died for us. Because our lives are his lives. His image is what he created. He created himself. And he loves himself to death. You're not listening to me. Put your hands down. So this is a vertical, horizontal. This is the law of God. In fact, put your hands where they were. And I want you to stand. The vertical and the horizontal. You can't say, I love God, and you hate man. 1 John 4:20 says, he who says he loves God, whom he has not seen, and hated his brother that he sees, is a liar. It can't. Put your hands down and remain standing. I don't have my timer, but let me move on. The 10 Commandments. What this means is, if you truly love God, you will love man. When we see you love man, we know you love God. These are inseparable. Are you listening to me today? And this is why the 10 Commandments were made like this. Smack in the middle of the 10 Commandments is the 5th commandment, which says, honor your father and your mother. Are you listening to me today? I used to wonder why that verse is in the Bible and in the 10 Commandments for that. Because the way God made it, we are saved through procreation. We are saved through sacrifice, which comes through selflessness. Are you listening to me today? And listen to how this works. I used to always think there were 4 commandments, that God to man, and there were 6 commandments, man to man. I then discovered that God donated his 5th one to man. It's actually 5. Why? Because your parent is the first symbol of godliness you get to know in your life. When you call him Father, the one who deserves the title Father is God. And so he donated it, he gave it, he seeded it to parents. And the way your parents love you, the way your parents sacrifice for you, if the sacrifice of your parents do not move you, neither will the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. You're not listening to me today. And that's why it's in the center. This is the center of salvation. You cannot go left, you cannot go right. The center is this. If you do not get along with your first symbol of godliness, your first human that you get to know, for those who were born by, who met their parents, then you will never get along with God. Because that's just how it works. 1 John 4:20 says you're a liar. You cannot go to God without loving the godlings that you have around you. Now listen to how this works. Honor your father and your mother. By honoring your father and your mother, you are acknowledging that they love you, they sacrificed for you. Are you listening to me today? And when you have honored them and realized their sacrifice, how do you honor your mother? Your mother has a brother. We call them uncle. If you honor your mother, you will love your uncle. Just give me a moment. If you honor your father, you will honor your father's brother, who is your uncle or your father's brother, your uncle. Are you listening to me today? If you honor your father, you will honor your father's brother's child, whom we call cousin, but that is your brother. Are you listening to me today? Then quickly, I want you to go to 1 Timothy 5, verse 8. I think I was given less minutes today, or I took something, but I'm going to end it here. I won't go far. 1 Timothy 5, verse 8 for me, please, quickly.
But if anyone does not provide for his own,
right,
and especially for those of his household,
right,
he has denied the faith,
all right,
and is worse than an unbeliever.
Now listen to what the Bible is saying. If anyone does not provide for their own, who are your own? Fellow human beings like you. And especially those from your household. Who are from your household? Your parents, your uncles, your nieces, your relatives. It does not say you are equal to an unbeliever. It says unbelievers are better. You are worse. Because you see love and you don't respond to it. You're not listening to me today. And so the way God designed this is such that when you understand why the fifth commandment fits in the center of the commandments of God, of God's character, God created families so that families would cause the salvation of mankind. Let me explain how that works. I want these two children to come very quickly. Young man, come here. Young lady, come here. Come here very quickly. I want you to see something. God designed a generation of sacrifices. Come stand right here. Yourself. Now, I want you to see how this works, because the love God has for you is the love you should have for him, and the love you should have for your neighbor, people like him. And let me show you how the reason why God says, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Procreation brings salvation. All the men that you see running around in town, all the cars that you see that are going back and forth, they are trying to provide for someone. Are you listening to me today? Families cause normalcy, decency. If we were all not related somehow, we would butcher each other. But because everyone is trying to make sure that they're providing for their family, we protect life and preserve it. Listen to how God made it. The Bible says when Enoch begat Methuselah, he walked with God. So when Enoch begat Methuselah, his relationship with God improved. Are you listening to me today? And men may even realize it, because I also noticed it. When you have children, the relationship with your parents improves. And women especially, because it doesn't come naturally for you to have a good relationship with your mother. Mothers usually are closer to their sons. I'm close to my daughter. But listen to what happens. When your daughter eventually has their own child, the relationship with the parent improves. Have you seen that? When I had my children, I then understood that my father was a hero. I then understood his struggles. Are you listening to me today? Because I had now walked his walk. So here's how God is creating generations of sacrifices. When Enoch begat Methuselah, his relationship with God improved. When Methuselah begat, I don't know the names. Are you listening? I know them, but I can't memorize them. When Enoch begat his child, her relationship with grandparents will improve, and with God will improve. With the next generation, it keeps going. When she has a child, her relationship with her father will improve. His relationship with his father will improve, which improves our relationship with our father. When this one, it's supposed to be this way. When this one has a child, the relationship with her will improve. So I will sacrifice for Enoch. Enoch will sacrifice for his daughter. She will sacrifice for her daughter. She will sacrifice for her daughter. That's how God is creating generations of sacrifice. His character being replicated and given a reason to be duplicated because of sacrifice. I don't like talking about giving. I started by talking about giving. You may sit down. But I prefer to talk about sacrifice. Because when we talk about surrendering all, we are talking of sacrifice. I don't have time to delve into the aspects of how the family unit is the biggest test of your acceptance of the gospel of Jesus Christ or not. If you have beef with your family, if you have beef with your father, your mother, you need to go back and sort that out. Because if that sacrifice has not moved you to forgiving them for whatever you think they did, if that sacrifice has not moved you to want to allow your relationship to grow, the sacrifice of Christ will not move you. And it doesn't end there. Your mother has a sister who has a child, who has a sister, who has a child, who has a sister, who has a child. In the end, we all as a big family are children of one father. And so when you see them, I want you to imagine, especially ladies, when you see them beating up a thief on the street. In our language, you'd say, "Ngarowe, he must be beaten. Mshayen." Perhaps I've noticed my sisters and brothers will notice some of them will throw a tire around his waist and burn them alive. When you are seeing some stabbing someone else's children, imagine if you are the parent and that's your child, how your gut would move, how your love and your life would end. Mtanami bantu,